Welcome to the DEAI Journal. This is our news roundup where we dig into a few stories recently covered on our news feed and bring in perspectives and commentary from some of the leading minds in this fast-growing space. I'm January Jones, and I'm here with our founding editor-in-chief, Brad Keoun.
Today, our guest is Sultan Suleimanov, researcher, journalist, and founder of DeAI Nation. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, all right. So just a quick little intro for people who don't have any the foggiest, faintest idea of what we're actually talking about. DAI stands for, I pronounce it DAI, by the way, the international way. January hates that, but that is the way I pronounce it. DAI stands for decentralized AI, currently a niche cottage industry within broader technology development. And this is where inventors are combining artificial intelligence and blockchain to create products and services that weren't possible with either of these just two things by themselves. And there have been some pretty smart people and experts who are predicting actually that DEAI could become the foundation for the new global economy as everything gets reinvented for the agentic era. Okay.
Well, let's get into the news. So these are all stories that are, of course, being posted on Distro Media and also on a Telegram channel that we have. But first up, we're going to talk about Paradigm, one of the biggest name in crypto investing, and they just raised $1.2 billion. And for the first time, a big chunk of it is going into AI and not just crypto. They've already put money into Gnost Research, a decentralized AI company. So isn't this the sign that crypto money has changed? And now AI is going to be this layer that gets invested in this bear market. We've seen all these crypto research projects kind of disappear. Now money's pouring into the AI projects, but that also have the blockchain in them. What do you guys think?
January, you're completely right. I mean, Andreessen Horowitz was among those from the crypto world who were investing in some of the decentralized AI companies, but not on this scale. And of course, this investment or planned investment in Gnost Research is pretty significant signal towards bringing this money from the crypto world to the AI world or decentralized AI world, which is in my eyes exciting because I think the current state of crypto is not the brightest maybe in its history, but AI contrary is going very well, and this is a way to these two worlds to collide and cooperate in so different ways, not only on technological level, but in terms of funding too.
Well, I would say, Paradigm, notable, their co-founder, Fred Ursam, obviously was one of the leads of getting Coinbase off the ground, and I think he made a lot of money that way, which has obviously turned out to be pretty prescient bet on his part to get in on early on that, and now he was a notable. They were a notable big crypto VC, and now they're talking about going into AI. And I think it's interesting I guess the question is, are they going into AI, pure AI, or are they just going into like the crypto adjacent AI stuff, which might be the DEAI stuff? Gnost Research, by the way, I was just thinking about that before the show. They're probably would be considered one of the breakout stars of DEAI because they crossed over to mainstream AI. They were, a bunch of hackers who sort of were fine-tuning open source models. And then they kind of started going down the decentralized AI bandwagon to figure out how to serve those open source models on kind of a decentralized network. And then internally, they built the Hermes agent framework. They were
You
just
love
using it
that.
themselves. Yeah, they were just using it themselves, and then they saw OpenClaw came out, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we can release ours too. And now, in some ways, theirs has sort of overtaken OpenClaw as the most popular agent framework harness. So what do you think about that, Sultan?
I'm a little bit mad at them for doing this,
Okay.
to be honest, because when I first heard about them late last year, maybe in December, their main thing was this thing called Psych Network, I think, which was a technology to train models in distributed hardware, which is a very hard problem for our industry, for decentralized AI industry. It's relatively easy to inference in decentralized manner, even though there are some technical challenges there. But to train is something where, like, the brightest minds of decentralized AI ecosystem are working on that, and they're not too far away, to be honest. And they were doing this and doing some great stuff, and they were very respected, and they are still respected, of course. But then they released Hermes Agent, and I heard nothing about all that old stuff since then. For the last 6 months, they only are making Hermes better, and of course that's much more popular, and now it brings them money.
Product market fit.
Yeah, but God, I don't know. I hope they will bring this as a separate company and still continue doing their correct research on decentralized training, because that's what we need on long run. Not only great agents, but also great minds thinking about training our own models.
Well, could you dig into that for me a little bit more? Why is that such a priority, and why were they so innovative? Like, why are you missing what they were putting out as they switched their focus to what's been popular?
Right. I will try. I'm not an expert, but I can tell things that I've heard. So on one side, the problem is that right now we don't really need any, like, small lab trying to find a way to distribute it, to train a model in distributed way, because we have a lot of Chinese and European companies releasing open weight models, which we can just take and use, and they are trained in centralized manner basically, but they are released to open source. But the more powerful the models get, the harder it will be for us to get our hands on these most powerful models. Even now, China is considering closing, the most frontier models, Fable level, Mythos level models from being released as open weight. And at that point, we as humanity, as people who are not maybe from China or don't really want, just to subscribe to Claude and let them decide how much usage you got, we will be in this situation when we basically need our own models to be trained, even if we don't really have so much servers and hardware in one data center. And at that point, it means that we should just bring everyone brings their hardware together, and we collectively train on some open data, some open algorithms, and on this hardware. But to train on that hardware is pretty hard, because as far as I understand, you have to really heavily communicate between all of these pieces of hardware on every step of training, which means that you have to, like, share a lot of huge amount of data, which is usually done in data centers on very, very fast connections. And NOS were one of these leading labs who were thinking of ways to reduce amount of data that you have to send between these nodes during the training, which they demonstrated by training several models in decentralized manner. They're not frontier, they're not very popular, but this is a great proof of concept that this could be achieved in some future. But of course, it's pretty hard to get funding for that, because again, everyone would just start asking, why can't I download Kimi or Qwen or DeepSeek? Why should I invest $100 million to you to think of ways to do this in distributed manner? But in the future, we'll get there, and we will need guys like from Nose Research or from Prime Intellect to crack this problem.
Well, just to piggyback on that, I mean, obviously the Trump administration, I was just reading, they're now talking about possibly blocking some of these Chinese models on the grounds of national security. But of course, a lot of the, U.S. Companies that are, the AI firms are also complaining that a lot of these Chinese open source models are stealing, right, through the distillation process, they call it. I mean, really, we're talking about balancing all sorts of societal interests, right? It's like freedom tech versus national security versus privacy versus, intellectual property protection. There's a lot of really fascinating kind of, vectors, if you will, here that are in some ways going in opposite directions. I think it's a pretty interesting story.
Well, let's move on to our next story because let's talk about the GPUs and the hardware. So Galaxy is making the case that crypto's real advantage in AI isn't competing to sell AI compute. It's financing the GPUs, using crypto-style lending to fund the hardware build-out faster than traditional banks can. So Galaxy has this report out, and they have already leaned into this, turning old crypto mining sites into GPU data centers, backed by big financing deals. What did you think when you wrote about this, Brad?
I mean, the big idea is just actually keying off what we were just talking about, the decentralized training, where you're training the models using a decentralized compute. Now we're talking about decentralized inference, which is much easier, right? I mean, that's like a much more, and there are lots of projects doing this. Morpheus is doing this, Aether's doing this. I mean, there's lots of, obviously BitTensor, I think, do they kind of do that? Or there's some
of their subnets, chutes, yeah.
So there's lots of these networks. Akash, I mean, there's some projects that do, that make that pretty easy. But I don't know, what do you think, Sultan?
I'm generally happy that this report is out, and it's focused mostly on decentralized inference because I don't know, if you look into the coverage of decentralized AI, it's not very consistent, and it often goes towards agents and payments and all this stuff that's more about the future and where we want to be, rather than the actual infrastructure that is running right now and is bringing the investors some returns and giving people the AI tokens that they're really in need of. For example, the Akash you mentioned, they're doing pretty well on Open Router, and they're serving more than a dozen of billions of AI tokens per day on different scale of models. That some of them are relatively small and some are larger. And this is a good opportunity basically for investments right now, not rather than developing a hundreds agentic system, to find a inference project, a decentralized inference project where you can connect your spare GPU and start serving tokens to the people. The only note I should leave here that it sounds better in theory than in practice, because in theory it sounds like you have your gaming PC and you connect it to the network and start making money from sharing AI workload. But in practice, you have to own something much more powerful than you could own at home, something like H100 plus levels of GPUs, which is a different level. So, but yeah, in general, I'm pretty happy to have this report and also to look at the decentralized AI ecosystem map. It's always every map I looked at for in this 6-7 months. They all are different. They all chart the projects in different places and different groups, and it's you always see something you never heard of about in the past, or you see some project you heard about and you thought you are the only one who heard about them, and now you see them charted on this map. It's always so fascinating because this is so fast-growing ecosystem. For example, I'm looking at this map right now, and they have these marketplaces and aggregators group with OpenRouter as, of course, as a main player here. Everyone wants to be OpenRouter. And next to it is Antseed, which was only launched 2 months ago. And I wrote about them a little bit. And I thought that, oh, well, it's a very young project. And probably I am the third one after a couple of developers who heard about it. But now it's on the chart next to OpenRouter. Wow, this is pretty impressive progress for them. So yeah, it's always really interesting to see the projects, how they are put together, how are they described by the researchers. We see Venice here, which is making a lot of news recently thanks to their funding and all this discussion about anonymity and privacy in serving AI models.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing I would say is just there's some signaling here with Galaxy in particular, homing in on this topic. I mean, you know, everybody in crypto obviously knows Galaxy. Mike Novogratz is also, you know, comes from the world of Wall Street and traditional finance, and people know him. And, you know, they're kind of considered like the Goldman Sachs of crypto finance, right? I think that's how people kind of see them, that they're smart in that way. And they have a similar structure with kind of broker, you know, market making and then investing and obviously research. That's a big part of what they do. And they're, you know, focusing on this particular area. It kind of shows what the potential is, you know, and they're spending the time to dig into how it's going to work, and how it also, they made a lot of connection with how a lot of AI is becoming commoditized, the AI finance and, you know, GPU rentals. There's futures markets on that. And, you know, they haven't quite figured out how to do, you know, generics on the AI tokens, you know, input and output tokens, not crypto tokens, but AI tokens. And those could eventually be like, you know, dollars per million, you know, input tokens, standardized contract. And that's all going to be traded by all these giant firms, right? Including all Wall Street's going to want to trade that stuff too, because there's huge money in AI. I mean, just like trillions and trillions of dollars going into these projects. So, and Anthropic's, you know, IPOs coming up, and, you know, OpenAI's IPO. Like, there's so much money going into into AI, and so now you have this crypto financial firm figuring out that this is kind of a way to latch into that action. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if you can expand upon that for me a bit more, though. You were saying in this report, there's this map. And we're kind of like talking to ourselves here when we're talking about these projects and what is decentralized AI and this subgroup that most people haven't heard of. We can call it the other AI. But I'm wondering if, you know, you could maybe just frame it a little more from what you're seeing in that map, because you said it's a changing space, right?
In my eyes, all these charts, they are generally trying to, or all these maps, they're generally trying to cover the life cycle of an AI model from, if it's not present on this, on Galaxy's map, but on Messari, for example, it was there, from data, because you need data to train a model. Then you need hardware and someone to write the right software to train the model, and then to serve it on hardware, to serve it to actual customers, to build product on top of that. And if we go even further, someone to build a chip that will be inferencing these models more effectively and cheaper than it does NVIDIA GPUs or AMD GPUs. So all these maps are generally trying, and of course, After the use cases, we go to agents, to payments, to all these launch pads. So it's basically we can build the whole ecosystem, or at least we would hope to get there. But then when you start putting these logos, little logos of these projects on this map, you see that many of them cover several layers or several places. And sometimes you as a researcher have to spend some time just thinking, where should you put this project right now? Where it is today, or where is it going in the future? Because it might be a different thing. They might be influencing something today and promising something much larger in the future. Ambient is one of these projects in my eyes, because they launched AI inference system right now, and they're inferencing AI tokens to the people, but they have this intention to build their own model that would be so powerful that no one will need any other models on their network, which has its own ambition for sure. But so you always have to play this little game of what's today, what's the ambition, where to put them, how to compare them with each other. So yeah, it's always, to me as a researcher, it's always just fascinating to look and see how the projects move and who appears from the last cycle. Maybe again, I'm comparing Galaxy's map with Missari's map that from the report that they published late in 2025, and like I see Pearl or Gonka or Ambient as proof of useful work networks here, but they weren't present on Missari report. So they made some steps towards getting more visible and getting this attention. So that's always cool. Yeah,
I would just say, based on my observation, right, as anecdotal as a journalist, from a technological cutting edge perspective on the AI stuff, the traditional AI is like 6 months ahead, right? In other words, if you're saying like Fable is the latest, or like the latest GPT model that just came out is even better than that, supposedly, maybe, who knows. But then it's like the open source models that you're able to use on, some of these systems are a little bit behind, but they're now as good as Claude was at the beginning of the year, right? I mean, so it's like there's 6 months lag time there, but so you if you want to build on decentralized infrastructure today, you're going to be about 6 months behind on some aspects, right? Obviously, you're going to get benefits because of the trade-offs. You're going to get the benefits of decentralization, but you're going to be behind on some of the other stuff. And so, like, Hermes, Noose Research, for example, just kind of their example, going back to the earlier discussion, they came out with Hermes, from a decentralized project, but most people are just running that on their AWS or cloud or whatever, right? Like some sort of, centralized cloud provider. But anyway, it's just, it's going to be a question of what people want when they need it, right?
I think we also have to put this into context, though, because it all moves so fast. So if we're talking about centralized AI moving fast, it's like days, right? And how do all these investments and markets and companies continue to keep up? So even if you're saying decentralized AI technology and companies are 6 months behind, I don't think that's true. And I think there's an exponential catch up that happens, that it's not a steady tick, because the truth of it is the more money that pours in, and we've been talking about the investment in this news segment. What's $1.2 billion? Oh, no big deal, right? I think that we have to remember we're talking about an area, decentralized AI, that is still new. Even if AI is new to everybody else, decentralized AI is extra new, and trying to explain what that means, why it's important, and how it coattails or builds on centralized AI is something that we continue to have to explain and get taught on a weekly basis by these new projects coming out and seeing what they're doing.
I would note that centralized providers are very fast, not only on building stuff, which is, we can give them a credit, but also on promoting regulation and all these limits and controls, which, I don't know, in my eyes, they brought the idea of decentralized AI being very actual from something that was just mostly as an idea of, dystopian future to something that is happening right now. At the beginning of the year, I was researching what's going on, and I've seen these ideas coming from even people from like Google, from large corporations, that in the future there will be nationalization of AI models and AI labs and data centers, and everything will be controlled. And I was like, yeah, well, in the perspective of decentralized AI, this is a great topic, because that's a way for me to show to the readers, or to the people, that this might be a distant future. But 6 months later, it's not a distant future, it's just happening right now. So unfortunately, thanks to them, decentralized AI is getting much stronger as an idea. And luckily, we have some products that are already on the same level, that they're just are ready to meet these people. Some of these products are still in active development and evolvement. But yeah, and mostly what I'm trying to say, that the run towards centralization and control, it's much faster than I anticipated, and but it's playing the card that we really need in this area.
Well, I mean, January knows I'm involved in discussions over the future of media, and I lead a Telegram channel called the Decentralized Media Network. But I think you're talking about decentralization, and what are the general benefits of decentralization? It goes back to kind of like Satoshi, right? It's like censorship resistance. So if you're talking about bringing censorship resistance to AI, it's not something a lot of people have thought about, because it's all so new, but it's very real, right? I mean, as you say, the governments are really getting involved in this stuff now. So if you, from a freedom tech, a lot of people want that, right? A lot of people want the government to be like, no, we should not release this on humanity. And then there's other people who are like, yeah, we want to be able to use what we want to use without people restricting what that is, right? And so I think it's like one of these fascinating conversations that'll define our civilization, how it resolves.
It does, and it kind of resolves itself in the way, because governments aren't set up to keep up with technology, right? And so it comes out de facto being policy through what the tech companies decide to do, but also what the people decide is okay and what is not in these conversations. And so that's why it's endlessly fascinating to see this space become politicized, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you regulate computer thinking across borders, But this gets us into this other story. We're going to talk about AI agent core, because we're seeing AI go into all these areas we didn't see 4 years ago that it could be or be relevant, right? And so now everybody's agent mad, right? Because you've been talking about Hermes, OpenClaw, and everyone is also seeing the commerce side of this, of what agents are going to do. But one of the stories Brad wrote about was that a group of 27 crypto companies launched something called the Internet Court. And it's basically a courtroom for AI agents. And so as AI agents start making deals and payments with each other without humans involved, how do you settle things if something goes wrong? So this is kind of like living in a sci-fi novel, right? But Brad, like AI agents have their own legal system. I mean, do they get a lawyer? Like, what is going on? Like, what was your take from writing the story?
Well, I mean, by the way, I met Albert Castellano, who's their CEO and co-founder. GenLayer is the project. GenLayer. They're the ones who are kind of leading this thing.
Okay.
And I mean, the idea is, the current world where human signs up for account on website, human enters, chooses subscription, human enters credit card, human buys something, then human gets something that's not what they ordered, and then human calls somebody and complains until they get their money back, right? Like, it's a long process. And the idea is, if we're moving to a world where agents, they don't sign up for accounts, they just use micropayments, without authentication to buy everything, because that's the way people are building now. You just point your agent at this other agent and it says, I want this, and says, here it is, and you pay right away. It's done, right? But then what happens when something goes wrong? And that was they've been building around that to solve that problem. And they have lots of scenarios of like this happens, and thinking about it in terms of legalese. None of this is sanctioned by any court. These are all contracts, and it's sort of like, it really is. It's between, it's sort of resolving things between the buyer and seller before they go to court, right? And I mean, so I think it's kind of like the pre-court resolution level. I don't know. Was that kind of the way you see it, Sultan?
I'm thinking that the next step would be introducing agent jails for those who failed and try to deceive people. Why not? I don't know what will be there. Maybe they will get shittier hardware to run on, so they would be like, yeah, I'm pretty restricted now. So yeah, the future sounds pretty fantastic.
Here's the thing, though. What you're pointing out is, okay, well, you can get to the court, but what is the punishment, right? What are the rulings? What are the consequences? And how do you get agreement, But yeah, I think that this is something a lot of people haven't considered, because they just assume the agents aren't going to make mistakes. And we know that is not true.
Well, I mean, there is obviously this plays into. I mean, I'm curious. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Sultan. But the agentic identity and reputation systems that are coming, like Ethereum has the 8004, and it's like Google. A restaurant rating, like they have 5 stars, or you never believe it if they have 5 stars, but if they have 4.6, that's pretty good. 4.9, also fake. But like, they have these, the agents under that thing. I don't know if this is live yet, but they will have reputations. So if I sell you news every time you come to Distro for news, and I always give you the news you're looking for, eventually, and your agent would give me a good rating for that transaction. Eventually, I would have 4.7 stars, and then other agents would find me as like a reputable news distributor. I don't know. What do you think about that, Sultan?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it sounds very similar to how many decentralized networks work, where the nodes check after each other, and if someone fails some checks, they go to, basically sometimes it's called jail, and sometimes they're just deprioritized and getting less rewards, or their rewards are slashed or something. So I guess the same core idea is coming here, but I should say that this is so advanced for the majority of people. I think right now, I mean, of course, the majority of people maybe didn't even try any agents at all, but those who tried, they usually either code or just ask to search the information and collect it and bring it back, not to do some actions on the live wild internet or communicate with other agents. And but yeah, looks like that's the future we're coming to, where there will be these payments specifically designed for agents to do between each other, and the court system to dispute stuff, and reputation. That's I think recently a lot of people, especially on the rise of ChatGPT and large language models, a lot of people remember this very old IBM presentation with 2 lines. A computer can never be held accountable, and therefore a computer must never make a management decision. And looks like we're this close to stop believing into that and letting the computers to make decisions, make payments, do whatever they want, and be accountable for that. So yeah, looks like IBM was right for a couple of decades, but not forever.
Their stock's down like 25% in the past 2 days or whatever.
People know something.
Well, I think a lot of people in this space have fully bought into the concept of agentic commerce, right? It's sales contracts, basically. It's buying things under a contract. Brad and I are headed out to San Francisco at the end of the month. And this is definitely on the agenda for 3 different events that we'll be heading to that are merging AI and blockchain for the most part. And then one at Berkeley that's totally focused on agentic technology. And you're seeing investments, you're seeing financial companies, crypto financial companies make bridges and being ready for this. So I think that a lot of the people in this space, especially in the commerce area, think this is a done deal, and it's happening no matter what. Whether that comes true in the next 4 months, we'll see. But it's good to know that there's going to be these other types of solutions, because in a traditional way, you would just argue it with Visa, right? You dispute it on your credit card, with that company. Who do you dispute it with now when these things happen? So it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, just complaints with blockchain in general, right? Your money's gone, you ain't getting it back.
Just gone,
right?
Yeah.
There's no reversal. There's no central authority saying you have to give this money back to them. It's all Wild West kind of stuff. So I think that's probably the spirit of it, is to try to, and it all runs, Jen Layer, they talked about their consensus mechanism and how it actually works, and it's pretty complicated stuff. Just like all the blockchain stuff, they behind the scenes, they have validators, and so it is not the easiest to understand what's going on under the hood. I think that's probably a barrier for some people to be like, yeah, we don't even understand how this thing, blockchain people understand it, maybe how it works, but we understand how this works, but no normie is going to be like, yeah, okay, let's just adopt this for our court system,
Well, let's talk about DEAI Nation. So, Brad, how did you 2 meet? Tell me how you guys met, and then let's talk about that project a little bit as we wrap up.
Just to say, I did not tee you up to tee me up with this question, but this is going to be a very self-serving answer, which is, DeAI News, DeAI Journal.
It's not a thing.
DeAI News is published on the Telegram channel of the Decentralized AI Society, DAIS Global Telegram channel, which is open. Anybody can join it, by the way. And I've been publishing on that since for 8 months now. And Sultan's on that, happened to be on that, and at some point you piped up about something, and then I reached out to you and we had a conversation.
True. Yeah. I'm not from crypto world. I'm not from AI world. I'm just a journalist in the past who last year I've seen this how this all moving, and my friends offered me to co-found this non-profit organization called DeAI Nation, where we just aim to do basically what's you two are doing, and everyone is doing in our group chats and everywhere. We're bringing attention and trying to explain to the people what is a decentralized artificial intelligence, why is it important, how is it relevant at all. And so yeah, we launched in December 2025, and a couple of months later we published the first State of Decentralized AI report, a pretty long one, but it was really important for us to figure out, again, as I said earlier, everyone maps everything differently, so it's important to put everything through your mind and put on your map and try to discuss this with the audience and talk to the executives or representatives or creators of this protocols and projects. But then, yeah, we decided to focus on two areas, one of which is a little bit in competition with Distro, which is covering the ongoing processes in decentralized AI and in centralization of AI, because we cannot stop talking and thinking about that. Every week we see something. We launched a weekly newsletter called Directionally Bad, thanks to Sam Altman's messages for the great name. And yeah, every week we see something going directionally bad in centralized AI, and everyone's asking for more control or limits or anything. So we try to keep up with that, but also to highlight what's going on in decentralized AI. And also we want to see what's going on the infrastructure layer, on the inference layer. So we were building a dashboard, which is available on the site. It's open to everyone, where we are trying to collect the data about hardware available for different inference providers and their market parameters and their community parameters, just to give the glimpse to the people who just started researching decentralized AI, what's going on. And still, to say honestly, we are pretty far from any of centralized labs, even as an industry, as a whole. January, you mentioned that. What is that? $1.2 billion. It's just nothing in terms of hundreds of billions being poured into centralized labs. And in terms of available hardware and everything, it's pretty bleak. But still, it's important to see how the ecosystem is evolving and bringing new players and new hardware and producing more and more AI tokens. So yeah, we're focusing on that. But also, I can give a tiny hint here. I just started working on another report on chips for AI, specifically for those chips which are not completely bought by huge labs, but those available for smaller protocols and projects, for decentralized AI projects. So hopefully I will cover that, but also hopefully we will see how ASICs, chips produced specifically to inference chips or to inference AI or to train AI models, will come to the market on larger scale. And yeah, we'll get rid of one of the most centralized parts of the whole thing, NVIDIA, because it all goes to NVIDIA after all. You go and buy their chips.
You started up pretty quickly. So you founded it as a nonprofit in December of 2025, released your first report in January to give the state of the lay of the land, I guess, in this new field. But looking at the report, you also laid out some principles on why it's important, right? You set kind of the foundation, and it goes to everything from, governance to freedom, and also how AI can be used to kind of suppress the will of the people and democracy. So could you talk a little bit more about, while you were so motivated, what are those principles behind the founding that then makes you dig into this tech so hard and spend all this time?
Yeah, I think when it started, we were mostly thinking from the humanities perspective, where we are just being expressed, brought to this Uber of AI situation where there is one or two huge corporations that decide the first step. They would make the prices so low that everyone would drop any other alternatives and use only them, and then they will be the only ones who are giving the prices and giving the product, and you have no choice. And
Yeah.
that was pretty scary. My first emotion at the beginning was being a fear that this is coming, this is the future. Yes, of course, last year compared to this year, especially for ChatGPT, for Anthropic, as a user, they were bliss. They were just very nice. It was new models and new releases, and everything was going so fun and nice. And then, but if you dig and look a bit further, you see that behind all of this, there is this idea of getting as much control as possible, as fast as possible, and then there will be no way for decentralized AI or whatever other alternative to grow large enough. You would be just they would be just dead at the beginning. So it was fear, and also feeling that the time is being gone so fast. It's just a matter of maybe a couple of years, not too far. Not because of predictions of AGI coming in a couple of years. It's totally different. But by that moment, we have to bring alternative infrastructure large enough to be sustainable when OpenAI or Anthropic or whoever else brings this huge system that would just cover everything. So the first thing was fear, but also when I started digging in, I realized that on geopolitical level, not only on personalities level, but on the level of countries or companies, and on all the levels, everyone is worried and everyone is looking for ways to lose this tight control, tight grip from the couple of corporations, or a bit more if you closer to China, but still, this is some trade-off. So everyone is looking for ways to get hardware, to get models, to get this idea of sovereign AI. Everyone is talking that every country should bring this, and Europe should have its own sovereign AI, even though they have Mistral, luckily, at least that. So yeah, it's I think it's really just a huge issue, which is by the majority of people is not even considered as an issue right now. So it's twofold problem. You have to explain to the people that there is a problem, but also there is a solution, which is usually done by someone who tries to sell you something that they just invented your problem and then they're giving you a solution. But in this case, I really believe that we don't have much time, and we have a lot to bring to the people, to show them. It's not about destroying OpenAI forever, but it's about bringing the alternative large enough to be sustainable and to keep OpenAI Anthropic accountable, and be more careful. JLM 5.2, I think, did something to Anthropic's mythos ideas, because without it, Anthropic was just feeling totally powerful and restricting people, and passport restricting and everything. But with JLM, they started moving a bit differently, and that's a good example that you should show this different ways to the people, to the users.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy once you start thinking about it, because all these governments to try to regulate what AI is doing, and then also get in there so they can kind of control it too. And it all goes back to controlling information and people's access to information. And so that's why we always need some alternative to whatever is happening in centralized technology. And we're on the fringes here talking about this, but it's very needed. And so this is where all the punks are left, right? This is the last space for them.
That's why it breaks my heart to see Andrei Karpathy at Anthropic rather than doing a lot of stuff for the humanity. I mean, he believes that he's doing a lot of good stuff for humanity, of course, but I don't know. I think we didn't do enough to convince him not to go that way.
Oh, there's just so much money going into these projects. It's probably hard to resist, right? Peter Steinberger, developer of OpenClaw, I mean, he went to OpenAI, and there's this massive talent war.
I think that it's very important for people to consider profit motive and information control. And so what you're doing with DEAI Nation is important. We'd like to make sure that gets highlighted. So you said you have your first report, you're working on another report about computing, and you have this dashboard. So people can go to the website and check that out.
That's true. Yes, everything is available for free and everywhere. So, feel free to Google. Use my spelling, not how Brad says it. DeAI Nation. I'm joking. Yeah, it's still not as bad as Decentralized AI Agents Association's abbreviation. I think DeAI. I don't know
a
how.
Lot of A's.
Yes.
A lot of vowels.
So yeah. Everything is available. Everything is for free. We don't really charge people for access to this information. We're happy to share as much as possible because it's really important to get better understanding of the processes.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us because as we're launching this, there's not a lot of conversations focusing on the decentralized AI space. And I had to run through so many names with Brad before he agreed that somebody that agreed you were smart enough to come on and talk about DEAI news with him.
Always happy. Good luck with series.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Sultan.